A really cool twist on parameters and stored procedures, they can be used not only to pass data into the stored procedure, but also to return data from the stored procedure. You've already seen several times how a stored procedure or a batch can return a data set, but here it's going to return individual scalar values through the output parameters. For example, here's the get product name, and there are two parameters. The first one is product code, where we're passing into the stored procedure a character data type. The second parameter is being declared in the same manner, but we add the output option to the parameter. In both cases, both the input and the output parameters, declaring the parameter creates those as variables. So the product code is an input parameter which will be used in the where clause. The select statement then finds the product name and passes that to the variable of product name, which is the output. If you're only going to be getting back a scalar value or a single row, output parameters are extremely fast and high performance, with much less overhead than creating a full record set. So create this stored procedure, and now I'll show you how to go ahead and call that stored procedure so we can get the output. The same way we created the output when we created that parameter, when you call the stored procedure, you still have to use the output there as well. So I'm going to first declare a variable, and this is a variable that's scoped inside this batch. Then within the batch, we're going to call the stored procedure, get product name. Here's the first parameter being passed to it, and then here's the output parameter. And instead of passing a string here, I'm giving it the name of the variable I want to receive the output, and I declare output along with that variable name right there. And then we're going to print that output so we can see the result. Let's just sort of walk through what's going to happen to product name. At the outer layer, at the batch level, product name gets declared as a variable. It has a value passed to it, and then it gets printed. To walk through the whole logical flow, product name gets created, we call a stored procedure, execution goes up to the stored procedure, 1001 gets passed to the input parameter, gets passed to the product code used in the where clause, the select is executed, the product name gets put into the product name variable, which is output, and received here in the outer layer again by prod name, our outer batch variable, and then returned. So go ahead and execute this, and sure enough, it runs great. So method number one of returning data from a stored procedure is simply doing a select and returning that record set. Option number two for returning data is using output parameters. And then option number three is that return that you've seen at the end of some of the stored procedures so far. And return can just return an integer. And it's really best not to return data using this integer, but to return more of a status of did it work okay. So for example, here's a procedure simply called is it okay? This procedure receives a varchar value, and then if that varchar value is okay, it returns a 0. Anything else, it returns a negative 100. Create the procedure, and if you call this from ADO code, it'll return back inside of one of the ADO parameters. If you want to see the return code within T-SQL, then here's the syntax. When you execute the stored procedure, you can put a variable that can receive or recover that return code from the stored procedure. So the first time we're executing this, we're passing to it OK, which means we should probably have a return 0 if all is well with the world. The second time we're passing not OK, and we should receive a minus 100. And those values are passed to the return code variable and then just printed. Let me give us a little more room here. And sure enough, we see 0 for the OK and minus 100 for the iteration where we called it not OK.